Today we're heading into Mação. It's a little Portuguese town. Just look at these roads. This is our sort of riding now. We're not trying to reach Nordkap before tea time. We're just going to see where the road goes and preferably where the cake is. This is the reason that we swapped the big adventure bikes for the NX500s. We've done the big destinations, but now we're slowing down and looking at the places we'd have previously ridden straight through while concentrating on getting to somewhere else. This area is full of history. Mação's been here for a very long time. There's Iron Age remains, Roman remains, and later the Knights Templar and the King's Hospital. They were all active in this part of Portugal. So Mação itself grew up from a small settlement associated with the castle at Belver. It's a beautiful view. I'll put it in another video later on. It's a bit touristy for now. So by the Middle Ages it was important enough to receive a charter from Queen Saint Isabel, wife of King Denis, and another charter from King Pedro I in 1355. So it survived Romans, medieval kings, several centuries of Portuguese history, and now two British people on Hondas have turned up with a GoPro. But I'm sure the town will cope. And speaking of important cultural research, food. Mação is particularly associated with cured meats and presunto. The wider Mação area became an important centre for Portuguese ham production and small-scale presunto production and has been part of the local economy for generations, which means that technically stopping for lunch isn't us being greedy, it's historical research, and we take our responsibility very seriously. And if historical research happens to come with chips, that's simply fortunate. On the left, you might grab a glimpse of some trees that look like they've been massacred. These are cork trees. There's a lot of cork trees in this area. I love them because harvesting cork looks like it's completely brutal the first time you see it, like someone stripped half the tree off and left it standing there in its underwear. But the tree isn't cut down, the outer bark's carefully removed and the tree grows back, and after a number of years they can harvest it again. So Portugal's famous worldwide for cork, and it's not just made into wine stoppers, it's part of the traditional working countryside. So if you see a cork oak looking suspiciously naked, don't worry, it's supposed to look like that. You're riding along and then you get little things like this, a fountain decorated in those unmistakably Portuguese blue tiles. This is one of the things that I love about riding slowly through little Portuguese towns. Something that could have been purely practical, somewhere to collect water, becomes beautiful. Long before everybody had water coming in the tap in their homes, fountains like these mattered. They were where people collected water, watered animals, washed things, and I strongly suspect found out about absolutely everything that everybody else in the village was doing. So basically, Facebook with buckets. Now, this is one of Mação's real treasures. The Igreja Matriz was dedicated to Nossa Senhora de Conceição. The church that's here today dates from the end of the 16th century. The date 1597 is carved over the main portal, and it was built during the reign of Philip I of Portugal, and inside there are 3 naves supported by Tuscan columns. There are 17th century pattern tiles, including panels depicting biblical scenes and later gilded woodwork. One of the tile panels is dated back to 1644. So these tiles have survived nearly 4 centuries, whereas I know mine at home would have fallen off by Tuesday. The church also survived a serious fire in 1715, which destroyed all the gilded altars and sculptures and all the other contents. So what you see today represents centuries of rebuilding, alteration and care. Mação has another lovely religious curiosity. At the nearby Miscordia church there's a 15th century stone image of Santa Maria de Mação, and apparently she holds the baby Jesus on her right arm rather than the more usual left. It's a tiny detail, but it's precisely why we're doing these journeys. You can ride through a town in 3 minutes or stop and discover that somebody's been noticing which arm a stone baby's been sitting on for about 500 years. And now, after several centuries of Portuguese history, public toilets. You're welcome. Actually, one of the things that we've discovered travelling around these smaller Portuguese towns is how well provided some of them are. There's a pool, there's a place to sit, there's viewpoints, and yes, toilets, which may not make the official tourism brochure, but after an hour on a motorbike they become an attraction of considerable historical importance. Well, for me anyway, at this age. And so we're off again, over Portuguese cobbles. These are extremely attractive, they are traditional, they are historic, and on a motorbike they rearrange your internal organs alphabetically. There are smooth roads, there are rough roads, and then there's Portuguese method of checking whether your fillings are fitted properly. But we've spotted a calf, so all's forgiven. Ooh, you may have just noticed something slightly unexpected back there on the left. Yes, it's an armoured vehicle sitting in the middle of this peaceful little Portuguese town, and no, Mação hasn't recently declared war on anyone, but we'll come back to it later because that particular vehicle has a much better story than you might expect. This is Mação's main square, and here the town's more recent history becomes much more serious. The memorial remembers local servicemen who died during Portugal's Guerra do Ultramar, the colonial wars fought between 1961 and 1974, principally in Angola, Mozambique and Guinea-Bissau. Men from communities all across Portugal were conscripted and sent overseas, and Mação lost men too. The memorial was designed specifically to represent those losses. The wall represents the municipality of Mação, while the stones incorporated into it represent the men who left this area and died during the war. Even the cuts and measurements in the stones have meaning, representing the time between each man's death and the date chosen for that memorial. So what initially looks like a very simple modern monument is actually telling individual stories. And there's another important connection. Those colonial wars helped create the conditions that eventually brought down Portugal's dictatorship, which takes us neatly back to that armoured vehicle we saw earlier. More cobbles because we didn't have enough the first time, and I've cut the sound out because there's an awful rattling sound, and it's not the NX, it's my back. Ooh, a wall with a window and door on an island. Nice. No idea what it is, can't find anything about it. Sorry. Right, the tank, except technically it isn't a tank. And I apologise now for my pronunciation because it's going to be terrible all the way through this, and it's quite an important piece of information, I think. So this isn't a tank, it's a Scenic, a Portuguese armoured vehicle, and this particular one has been turned into a work of art by Antonio Calaco, and it's called Palavra. And the name comes from palavra, which means word, and abril, which means April. And that's because it commemorates one of the most important days in modern Portuguese history, the 25th of April, 1974. So for nearly half a century, Portugal lived under authoritarian rule, first under Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, and later Marcelo Caetano. There was censorship, political repression, secret police, and Portugal became bogged down in a long colonial war in Africa. Then, on the 25th of April 1974, members of the Portuguese armed forces launched a coup. Armoured vehicles entered Lisbon, but instead of descending into a bloodbath that people might have feared, the regime collapsed remarkably quickly, and civilians came onto the streets, and according to the story that became the symbol of the revolution, carnations were placed into soldiers' rifle barrels, which is why it became known as the Carnation Revolution. If you have a look at the tank, you can see that somebody's put carnations in it. It ended the dictatorship and opened the way to democracy. So having an armoured vehicle sitting here isn't celebrating war, quite the opposite. Mação installed Palavra as a monument to freedom. And I rather like the name, a military vehicle called the Word of April, turning something designed for conflict into something that talks about freedom. It's quite clever, although slightly more meaningful than putting it on a roundabout and planting geraniums around it. And now we're going to look at the Roman bridge. Again, I apologise because we're new to this. I didn't realise that the video had run out, so I've got a picture but not the video going down, and believe me, you need to see the video going down because it's really steep, muddy, gravel. You need the right tyres on. I would suggest to go and have a look at the Roman bridge. It was built sometime between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD when Romans crossed across this region, and one theory is that it formed part of a route connecting with the Roman road network towards Merida. But the interesting bit is experts aren't completely certain whether the whole bridge is Roman or not, because its construction suggests an older bridge may have been repaired or altered during the Middle Ages. There's lots of stories that go around this bridge. At night, Roman soldiers can be heard apparently going across the bridge, and there's a story about a Knights Templar riding on the bridge on a horse, so they're interesting, but I don't fancy staying out here at night. After Romans, medieval kings, colonial wars and revolution, we've reached another important historical landmark, Intermarché, a local supermarket. Time for a tea break. There's people who make travel programmes and pretend they survive entirely on artisan coffee served in picturesque village squares, but we're not those people. And sometimes you're hot, sometimes you've been bounced over cobbles for half an hour and you just want a supermarket. This is real motorcycle touring. History, culture, beautiful scenery, and wondering whether they've got cake to put in my bag. So, one more piece of history worth seeing, the Igreja de Misericordia, which dates back to 1550. Portugal's Misericordias were charitable religious brotherhoods, caring for the sick and poor and helping the communities, long before anything resembling a modern welfare system existed. And inside the church is a beautiful gilded altar, and there's a stone figure of Santa Maria de Mação, which dates back to the 15th century, and there's a baby Jesus on the usual arm. One of those things we'd have ridden straight past without knowing is there. This is really the point of Scenic Throttle now. We're not collecting countries, we're collecting little stories. A church that survived a fire, a bridge that might have carried travellers to 2,000 years ago, a memorial where every piece of stone means something, an armoured vehicle turned into a symbol of democracy, and an ancient statue holding a baby on the wrong arm. Interesting, I think. So all of the things that we've looked at today, in our previous life we wouldn't have been on our tick list, but they tell you more about a place. So that's Mação. We came looking for some nice roads and a little Portuguese town, and we found Roman medieval royalty, Cork, Presunto, a revolution, a mystery wall, several churches and enough cobbles to loosen every bolt on 2 Hondas, which for us is a pretty successful day out. And this is exactly what we're going to keep doing. Slower journeys, smaller places, and finding the stories that we never noticed when we were racing towards the next tick on the map. If you'd like to come along, we're Scenic Throttle 2, and we'll see you on the next road, preferably a smoother one.